Are leadership commanders really worth investing into in 2024? Let's talk about it. If you guys are new here, this is Gainz Gaming. We make Rise of Kingdoms content, and today we are talking about leadership commanders in Rise of Kingdoms and whether or not they are even investable in 2024, and if so, which ones should you really be investing into, and what kind of pairings can you really run? Now, first and foremost, Lu Bu is probably the best leadership commander in the game by far. And yes, that is complete satire. He is a complete joke. If you guys were the ones that actually ended up buying him, I feel sorry for you because that was definitely a waste of money. If you guys don't even know who Lu Bu is, it is a commander that you actually had to buy from a bundle. I believe it was like $20 to even unlock him, and he is just absolutely horrendous. But let's talk about the leadership commanders that are actually good in Rise of Kingdoms. Now, in my opinion, the very best leadership commander as of right now is MMED. And that might actually be controversial because some people might say Honda. However, I'm going to say MMED simply because I think he has a lot more viability considering people have him invested into just by having gold keys open. So when it comes to using MMED, I mean, over time, you're going to be able to get him to 5511, which is really all you really need to be able to use him. And you also have the museum buff in Season of Conquest, which, if you guys forgot, he actually does have a very good museum buff of an additional 30% troop health and 10% skill damage, which is not too shabby if I don't say so myself. If I was still using him, I would definitely have that second tier of his museum buff unlocked. But when it comes to using him, I mean, you can use MMED with just about any, meta commander. Like my favorite ones are personally using him with Scipio as a primary or using him with Nevsky as a primary. And this is a great pairing for MMED because he's kind of a transitional commander in my opinion. So for example, with Scipio, you can use Scipio and MMED while you are investing into Luce until you get Luce to a point where you can use him instead of MMED. And I would say at 5511 for Luce, that is where MMED is replaceable, but he is an amazing bridge commander between KVK 2 and KVK 3 and going into Season of Conquest because he just has that extra viability, plus you get that museum buff, which goes a very long way as well. And then with Nevsky, you can use Nevsky MMED until you get Joan of Arc. Getting her to 5515 is kind of like a bare minimum, I would say. You really just want that last skill maxed out, so even 5115 could be viable. However, you're going to have to get really lucky with your skill resets to get that. But having a 5511 MMED going into Season of Conquest can be absolutely enormous for your account and just having that bridge commander. Now, in my opinion, the second best is going to be Honda. I think Honda is an amazing commander. Personally, I would not use him simply because I think it's just so much of a niche commander where you kind of have to have 6 or 7 marches to make this a viable march. He does have a very good skill kit. I mean, he does do a ton of damage, 2500 damage factor, and it is AoE as well. He also has an extra march speed bonus as well as extra attack. And then if you keep on going, you can see you take less damage. You also can do march speed reduction. He just has a very, very good skill kit. And even at the very end, you can see you get a skill damage bonus, you get a unit capacity bonus. All these things add up. So I think Honda is definitely a very good commander. And out of all the leadership commanders that you can put gold heads into, I think he is the best one. Simply because, if you are investing into leadership commanders, you most likely have 6 or 7 pairings anyway. And so, you're going to be a whale if you are investing into leadership commanders in most cases. I mean, obviously there are some garrison commanders, which again, you're going to need to be a big spender in Season of Conquest to invest in these commanders. For example, Heracles is an amazing leadership commander for your garrison. Also YSS obviously is a very good garrison commander. And then we also have Lapu Lapu, which is a brand new commander in Rise of Kingdoms. And personally, I unlocked him because I wanted his first skill because you can actually do barb chaining with him because he does do 5 march AoE in a circular shape. So you're actually able to use him in Season of Conquest for chaining barbarians. So you can actually do a lot more chaining in Season of Conquest now because of the addition of Lapu Lapu. Now, when it comes to epic commanders, obviously we only have 2. So there aren't a whole lot of viability for your epics before Season of Conquest. I mean, obviously Scipio, he's not amazing. You get the extra troop capacity and, his first skill is okay, I guess. But, Osman, he's a little bit better in like KVK 1. Well, obviously not one you're going to use like past KVK 2 in any case. If we look more into other commanders that are viable, I have seen some speculation with Frederick I and his viability. I mean, Obviously, he's not going to be the best case scenario, but he does do some cool things when it comes to having extra troop capacity. And with his expertise, you also have a 100% chance to deal additional damage, which is pretty cool. Speaking of which, I can actually expertise him right now. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Might as well. So now we have Frederick expertise. We'll never use him, but I guess that's another one that just looks cool, I guess. But if we keep on looking here, Julius Caesar, I mean, he has some viability as well. Obviously kind of similar to Frederick I. I'm very close to expertising him as well. You know, let's just go ahead and put third. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But, you know, Julius Caesar, him and Frederick are actually pretty good in Champions of Olympia if you do play that game mode. I personally don't. I just don't really enjoy it. But one other commander that we need to talk about is Ethelfled. She is a commander that, you know, obviously you have her at the very beginning of the game, and you should be able to expertise her pretty quickly because of Expedition. You know, if you're doing Expedition, eventually you will expertise her pretty quickly just from these extra game modes right here where you can get these Treasure of the Warrior Queen chests. And then you can also buy out her sculptures here too. You should be buying 3 of these every single day, because if you have this finished up, you are going to have way too many coins to even know what to spend with. Like over time, I think I was at like 500,000 like a couple months ago. So you're just going to continue to increase, even if you're buying other stuff here. Like you can see I bought 4 other things, and I'm still going to be at a surplus of coins over time. But, you know, obviously Ethel, like, she has decent viability in the early game. But once you get to Season of Conquest, I mean, she has some viability, but the biggest viability is just exchanging her for individual credits, which I think is kind of ironic. That's her biggest viability in Season of Conquest, is just trading her sculptures in. But if you use her like behind Trajan, which is another commander we'll talk about, if you use her behind Trajan or another commander where you can hide Ethel, it actually is pretty decent in Season of Conquest. Not meta, but definitely usable in some capacity. I personally would not use her simply because I have much better options available. But the one thing that people don't think about with Ethel is that her direct damage to 5 targets actually does not get decreased with the amount of targets. Now what I mean by that is if you look at MMED, for example, his initial skill, you can see every additional target reduces the damage to each target by 15%. Ethel does not have that. So she deals 800 damage factor to all 5 targets, which is 4,000 damage factor. That is pretty good. You know, when you're looking at, you know, MMED, with MMED, you have up to 5 enemy targets with a damage factor of 1150, but you're also reducing for each additional target by 15%. So multiply that by 5, you can see that the Ethel's is actually pretty good because you are not getting that reduction with every troop that you are hitting. Plus, her AoE is much bigger than someone like MMED's that actually is more of a fan rather than just a little bit of an arc. And now, like I said, we'll talk about Trajan a little bit here as well, because in my opinion, this is the only other commander for open field that you really could even think about using. So when it comes to Trajan, I feel like you're either in love with Trajan or you absolutely despise Trajan. And personally, I'm on the side of despising him because I think he is a complete waste. Now, this is coming from someone that is not a huge spender, not a whale. If I was a huge whale, I would 100% be using Trajan because I can afford to use Trajan in that case. However, if you are not a big spender, maxing tech every single KVK, Trajan is not the commander for you. Now, if you care deeply about Sunset Canyon, then yes, Trajan is going to be a great commander for you. You absolutely need to have Trajan if you want to do the absolute best in Sunset Canyon or in Lost Canyon in KVK. But if you really don't care about that, like I don't, I really could not care less about Trajan. You can use Mulan or you can use Joan of Arc, the epic kind, and do pretty decent as well. Obviously not as good, but you can still do really, really well without Trajan and use other buffing commanders. But in the open field, Trajan is definitely a whale commander, not for the average player, not for the average open fielder. This is for someone that has 6 or 7 marches and has leadership gear or has commanders that they can, you know, fluctuate in and out, but also afford to take horrible trades with their Trajan because you know that is not going to trade well. At the very best, you might get an even trade with Trajan, but you're obviously buffing your other marches and you're buffing your allies. However, like I said, in my opinion, as someone that is not a max tech player, someone that's not a whale, you really do not and should not invest into Trajan because he just simply is not going to be that great of an addition for you because you're actually going to trade worse simply because your Trajan is going to trade so horribly. Now, like I said, this is a good opportunity for you to hide your Ethel behind your Trajan if you are a whale. And in my opinion, that's one of the best ways to use Trajan, but you can also use him with like Scipio. I think Chiscool has done that a little bit. I have also seen people using him with Mulan in the open field. However, I don't really know if I love that double buffing commander because, you know, Obviously, you're just going to trade even worse with, no tankiness, but there's a ton of different ways you can use Trajan. I can make a full video detailing that if you guys want me to. Let me know down below if you do. But like I said, very few players should actually be investing into Trajan simply because he is just such a niche commander. Let me know what you guys think down below about leadership commanders and whether or not you use them or would consider using them. Also, let me know which ones you think are the best. Like I said, I think MMED is the best leadership commander for the average player. Second to that is going to be Honda, simply because of his niche role as a 6th or 7th March, because of his viability in Season of Conquest. However, Ethel is the easiest one to expertise for most players, and she doesn't have that reduction in damage dealt by hitting multiple targets, plus she has a pretty wide range for her AoE. But let me know what you guys think down below about this list and what you would change or what you would add on to it. Thanks for checking out the video. Have a great rest of your day.